Hi everyone, I'm excited to share my mini field research pilot with you. My project is called Tourist Perception of Acapulco as a Tourist Destination After Hurricane Otis in 2023. Just to give you a quick background, back in October 2023, Hurricane Otis, which was a crazy, devastating Category 5 storm, hit Acapulco. So, for this project, I chose a quantitative approach using surveys because I wanted to see how past tourists actually feel about going back, how safe they think it is, and if they trust the recovery process months after the disaster. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to our instructor, Rebecca, for helping me shape this project. So here's a quick overview of the agenda, why I decided to look into this, how I actually set up everything, the big things that I wanted to find out, extra details, what was going through my head during this process, how I ran the survey, and what the numbers look like. The unexpected things I discovered, what I learned about myself, about the method, and paper and books that back me up. Let's start with the research purpose. Honestly, my main goal was to understand how tourists' brain works when they have to choose a travel destination that recently went through a massive natural disaster. I wanted to evaluate how Acapulco's image is holding up months after the hurricane. Why did I choose a quantitative survey? Well, perception can be super messy to measure. By using a survey, I could take subjective personal feelings like safety, trust, and travel intent and turn them into clean, standardized data. Since my target audience consists of tourists who visited Acapulco in the past but don't live there now, doing a digital survey was the smartest and easiest way to reach them. Plus, ethically, surveys are great because they allow 100% anonymity. This was key because I wanted people to be completely honest about their safety doubts and not feel pressured to give polite answers. Next up, preparation and planning. I didn't just throw this survey together. I had to make sure of the foundation uh, it was solid. First, I had to translate complex academic concepts like behavioral intent or perceived risk into super simple, everyday Spanish so that my participants wouldn't get bored or confused. I chose a standard 5 point Likert scale so people could easily rate their opinions from very unsafe to very safe. So, to make sure everything was ethical, I set up three main things under Royal Roads guidelines: a letter of introduction explaining what the pilot was about, a participant information sheet at the very beginning of the survey. This was explicitly told them that their data was safe and that their answers were anonymous. And number two, an active consent form. This was built right into the link, meaning they had to check a box to agree to participate before seeing any questions. To find my participants, honestly, I used a mix of friends and family. I asked them to send a link to people in their networks who have visited Acapulco as tourists but do not live there. If I were to scale this study up for a real larger project, I would definitely need to use random sampling, post the link on travel forums, and translate everything into English to get the perspective of international travelers too. Now let's look at the guiding research. To design a good survey, I had to see what other researchers had done before me. I looked at a study by Nasir Yassing and TAD 2021, which talks about how destination image and perceived risks directly affect whether a tourist wants to visit a place or not. This helped me understand that safety perception is the ultimate make or break factor for tourists. I also had to read O'Halloran and Ali in 2015. about tourism crisis management, which showed me how important it is to ask tourists if they actually trust the information they are getting about the recovery. And finally, the Sage Handbook of Survey Methodology by Wolf, 2016. He was basically a Bible for this project. It taught me how to write neutral, non leading questions and how to use Likert skills properly so I wouldn't accidentally bias my own results. So, this brings me to my primary research questions. I wanted to keep them clear and direct. So, for the question number two, this was to test if the fear of safety is still a major barrier. And for question number two, this was to measure if the disaster actually changed their travel habits or if they just didn't care. To break down those big questions, I came up with three sub questions. Number one, do you believe that Acapulco has recovered enough to receive tourists? How reliable do you consider the information you have seen about Acapulco tourism recovery? And how likely are you to visit Acapulco in the next 12 months? Like, what is their actual plan? Okay, so now let me share a bit of my field notes. I try to keep like a research diary, and it was very helpful to track my thoughts and how my ideas changed over the time. So for the prep phase note, I need to make sure my questions sound neutral. I don't want to sound dramatic, but I also can't ignore how bad the hurricane was. For the ethical setup, I just make sure the anonymity of the messages is very clear. If people think their friends will see this, they might lie and say everything is fine when they actually feel unsafe. And for the Google Forms link, I shared this through social media. I watched the responses and it was kind of exciting. So, but I had to close the link around 12 responses to keep this pilot small and focused. Now let's talk about data collection and analysis. As you can see on the slides, I used Google Forms using close-ended questions. It was great because it meant I could easily put the data into charts, which helps reduce my own personal bias. So let's look at the pie chart. How safe do you currently consider visiting Acapulco after the hurricane? So 50% of my 12 respondents, exactly half, are sitting right in the middle, choosing intermediate option. Only 16.7% felt safe, and the rest of them, the 33.4%, combined feel either unsafe or very unsafe. So this tells us that even months later, tourists still uh, are still cautious and holding back. When I analyzed the data, I found three good insights. The Otis effect is still real, so 8 out of 12 respondents said Otis still moderately to highly affects their travel choices. So the memory of the disaster is still very fresh. Most people don't fully trust the recovery news they see on the TV, which makes them hesitate. And this was the most shocking part, loyalty paradox. Even though they have safety doubts and don't trust the news, 8 of 12 respondents say they were likely or highly likely to visit Acapulco in the next 12 months. How do we explain this? Um, in tourism, we talk about destination loyalty, so Acapulco has massive emotional connection somehow with Mexican travelers, even if they think it's a bit unsafe or not fully recovered. Their nostalgia and the emotions for the place are stronger. So, to wrap up, I wanted to share my reflections and learnings. During doing this pilot was very eye opening for me, to be honest. So, Likert scales are amazing for measuring opinions, but I made a classic student mistake. I omitted age in place of origin from my survey. because I wanted to make it as short as possible to avoid any kind of friction. Now I realize it was kind of a mistake. I can't analyze if younger people are braver than older people, or if people living further away are more scared. So I think it would be good for an actual research to do these measures. I realize I'm actually getting much better at handling databases. At least I'm still trying, staying neutral and making sure my research is highly ethical. And I learned that destination recovery isn't about just rebuilding hotels, it's about rebuilding the trust. However, a strong emotional bond with tourists can also help destination survive even after a disaster. And finally, here are my references, the academic backbone that kept me on track. Thank you so much for listening. I would love to hear your thoughts, and I'm open to any questions or feedback that you might have.